Guitar Daily Workout is a culmination of thinking about technique studies for guitar over several decades, but it was really born out of my own frustrations in trying to learn my instrument. As a young college student, I began to realize that I didn't know my scales and arpeggios in the neck the way that I needed to in order to get better on my guitar, and that I needed to learn the rudiments of my instrument if I wanted to take my playing to the next level. When I was in music school, I studied with great guitarists, and I was very lucky to be studying with them. But much of what they were trying to teach me was somewhat lost on me. Not because I didn't know how to play. I'd been studying guitar for over a decade, learning songs and reading and learning scales and improvisation. But I realized in those lessons that there was a lot more that I needed to master if I wanted to achieve my goal of becoming a professional, full-time guitarist. And one of those things was knowing my scales and arpeggios. Unfortunately though, as good as my teachers were, they didn't have a clear step-by-step methodology to train me in the scales and arpeggios that I needed. So I was frustrated, and I felt like I was hitting a wall I just couldn't get over. I was willing to put in the time and the effort to improve, but I wasn't sure what I should be practicing to get there. Then something happened. I had one of those aha moments. Walking out of my lessons feeling pretty discouraged, I'd go past the practice rooms of the classical students. These are the kids who had their sights set on getting into a symphony, which is kind of like a football player getting into the NFL. It's a highly competitive field. I'd of course hear them practicing repertoire pieces. But I commonly heard something else too. They were going through their scales and arpeggios and exercises and working hard at them. We've all heard them do that. The pianists would be going through the Hanon studies, and the trumpeters would be going through the Clark studies, and the violinists would be going through the Flesch book, all designed to give speed, strength, dexterity, accuracy, and an understanding of what they needed to be fluent in the very demanding repertoire of a classical musician. And I knew that that was something missing for me. I was a pretty good player. I'd been teaching guitar at a local music store since I was 15. I was doing gigs and even doing some session work, getting hired to play on other people's records, including the head of my university's jazz department. I had a prestigious scholarship at that university, and I had even won a regional competition for Pittsburgh's Best Guitarist, and was a finalist in a big national jazz competition in New York City for the best college players in the nation. But still, I often felt insecure and lost on my guitar. I felt like I had little islands of knowledge, areas where I could play well on the neck, but then there was a whole ocean of areas between those islands that I didn't know, and I couldn't seem to bridge all the pieces together. My technique was pretty good. I could play some things really well and fast, but in other areas, I was weak and I was lost. There was a lot more that I didn't know than I knew. So I started searching for technique training methods, like what the classical players had for my instrument, the guitar. Like many guitarists, I went through the Mel Bay books and the William Levitt books, and they were helpful, but not quite what I needed. What I needed was what the classical guys had, a clear step-by-step system for developing technique for my instrument. So I set out to try to learn the most important exercises and technique studies for the instrument on my own. And as I began to do these vital exercises, I saw my understanding grow. My technique increased, and the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. Now, of course, I didn't just practice scales. I had to learn how to apply them. And as I did, I began to see how others used these building blocks in their playing. But because I was learning those foundational scales and arpeggios, I was able to understand what other guitarists were doing and not just copy their riffs. I began to see how to apply those ideas to my playing. I was learning how to learn music. And as I learned, I compiled the exercises that were most effective. And as I compiled them, I began to see how they fit together in a logical sequence of learning, and I arranged them in a systematic and logical order, from the most foundational to the most advanced. And that's how the Guitar Daily Workout was born. It's a time-proven method that will work if you put in the effort. Like the technique studies for classical musicians, these books will take you on a systematic journey through some of the most important exercises on the instrument. And it will build knowledge upon knowledge as you progress. I believe this series is the most comprehensive technique training method ever designed for guitar, with over 2,700 pages of exercises and over 1,200 videos. But it's arranged in an easy-to-follow format that gives clear weekly exercises with video lessons and play-along videos that don't require reading or theory to learn. For many guitarists, even those who have been playing a long time, I think they'll have their own aha moments as they finally see how all those pieces fit together, while getting physically stronger and faster on their instrument. And I believe that anyone who goes through this system will find what the classical players find going through their studies. that the impact of this learning will deeply affect their musical life throughout their journey. This is not an end-all of playing. You'll only get good at scales and arpeggios if you do this study. But it is a key piece that guitarists are often missing. And my hope is that you too will see the power of these exercises in your playing.